Chapter 13. I flirted with him. I tell ours the next morning, as we sit on the back porch, sharing the Sunday paper. I shouldn't have it owned that. He glances at me over the comics page, which he habituallyreads first before diving into the actual news. Why not? Why not? I repeat, my voicing rising with incredulity. Because, hello, most obvious thing in the universe. Becausewe're not together. Because it's a bad idea. Because thereinlies the path to madness. He studies me for a minute, then folds the paper, and puts iton the small wooden table that sits between us. You're serious, don't I sound serious? But he just shakes his head, and Isigh. We talked. We both acknowledged that things have changed. We're different people now, and the whole idea of spending some time together yesterday was to just get to know each other again. Right. Still not seeing the problem. I take a sip of my coffee, then sigh loudly. Never mind. Clearly I'll have to deal with my angsty, post-date remorse by myself. I glance at my watch. Only 8. Which means, it's 6 in law. Which means Celia will kill me if I call her for some hand-holding. I'm going to get a fresh cup and a donut. I say, donuts are ours Sunday morning vice, and being at my house isn't sufficient to change his routine. He actually got up this morning, jogged to the donut store a few blocks down onthe, then jogged back with a dozen warm, assorted donuts. I would call him out on the irony, but I'm afraid he'd banish him from Donutlandia. I return with the fresh coffee and the entire box. I figure it's midgety to help him eat them, thus saving him from one of his vices. I thought you used to be so in love with this guy that the world stopped turning. Ours says, plucking a kokolatekovid donut from the box. I grab a glazed. I was. Then why are you fighting it now? I pause. The donut not quite to my mouth. Because he'll hurt me. Because he'll leave. Because we don't even really know each other anymore. Because I am scared. A million familiar reasons rattle around in my head, and each one is real and true. But for some reason, after yesterday, none of them are quite as scary as they used to be. But that's a problem too. Because I need to be smart. I know what happens when you let your guard down. After all, because we're working together, I finally say, then shove half the donut into my mouth so that he can't interrogate me anymore. He manages to convey worlds of disbelief in just this tone. So much that I regret stuffing my mouth. Yes, no goodie. I say, not a good idea. He translates. I nod and swallow. Really not. We're going to be working close together on this one, and with the compressed time frame, we'll be working late hours too. Interesting, he says, then reaches for another donut. I frown. What is? He's chewing, so he simply shrugs. And since he's not as uncouth as me, I have to wait for him to swallow. I didn't realize you had so little self-control, he says. Or is Noah the one who doesn't have a handle on himself? What are you talking about? I'm just surprised to learn that you both have so little self-control that you're afraid you'll end up going at it like bunnies in the copy machine if you even suggest to each other that you're interested in that way. Ours. Don't say my name that way. What way? As if I'm being unreasonable or unfair. I cross my arms and sit back in my chair. I know I'm being huffy, but I feel justified. Fine, I'm listening. All I'm saying is that you slept with the guy, right? Yes, but, and then you went out with him and had a good time. I can hardly deny it, and you told me that you flirted with him, so in the what? 36 hours since you guys boinked like bunnies, you haven't lost interest. I mean, he still gets you hot. What is it with you and bunnies? He stares me down, and I sit back, my hands raised in surrender. Yes, still attracted. Understatement, much. That, however, I don't say out loud, and so I ask again, what's the problem? I try to think of what to say, some magical words that will make ours understand, except he already understands. No, he does. He's known me all of my adult life, so I tell him the truth. I don't think I can survive the hurt when he lives again. How do you know he will? His voice is gentle, and that makes it worse, because he's being nice. And I just want to run from everything he's saying. He continues, when I remain silent. I get what you're afraid of. I do. And, yeah, maybe you were dealt a shit hand, but your dad didn't leave you. He left your mom. Bullshit, I say. He divorced my mom, sure, but I'm Theon he left. Regular visits from the time I was 4 until I was 7, and then he remarries and I never see him again. Just Christmas and birthday cards, and even those stopped when mom remarried. With my mother at least, he did it the way you're supposed to, with a judge and a court order and all that. With me, he just crept off into the shadows. You're right, Ars says. I'm sorry, but he's the asshole. Don't let him paint your life. I swallow. Maybe so, but I seem to be a magnet for assholes. Look at Cameron's dad. And my mom, for that matter. My mother remarried when I was 9, and Cam was born when I was 10. His father, my stepdad, left before Cam's first birthday, sneaking out in the middle of the night with only a note for my mother and not even a hug for me. Even Thoft always been great to me before that. Taking me to parks, talking to me, promising me that he was my daddy now, and then, poof, he was gone. Guess he was right. He was just like my daddy ... in my head. I know that he was a jerk too. And I know that both he and my father left because of my ma, me. She had her own problems, God knew, but they just walked. They didn't say goodbye. They were there and then they weren't. And no matter how hard I tried to be rational and make sense of it, their abandonment scarred me. Maybe with a different mother, I would have healed. Onthe poured on love. Or even one who was tough and assured me that we'd get through it, that what those men did wasn't a reflection on me. But that wasn't my mom, not by a long shot. And when I was 12 and Cam was almost 2, she took us to her mother's house in Austin, supposedly so that Grams would watch us while mom had some adult time. That was the last I ever saw of her, not counting 5 Christmas cards without return addresses that came over the course of the next 10 years. She didn't even come to Gram's funeral. And yeah, I know it's not my fault. And I know it's not Cam's fault. If anything, it's my mom's fault. She's the one who left. And considering everything, it's a fair bet that she's the reason the men left too. But it feels like it's me. And the scars are real. And even though I know the truth, my heart has never really healed. I pull my feet up onto the seat of the chair and hug my knees, hating that I'm so vulnerable, and hating more that Ars sees it so clearly. And Owen? Ars says gently. I whip my head over, surprised. What about him? You're the one who left him. I cringe, then put my feet down as I reach for my coffee. I take a sip, knowing that I'm stalling, then say, that's just timing. He would have left me for that grad student. And you know that why? Because he slept with you? Owen Porter teaches at the business school. But I only had him for one introductory class, and we didn't start dating until much later. Things were fine while I was in school, but once I graduated and started pouring my energy into Crown Consulting, we started to drift apart. He even talked about taking a job at another college, even though he knew my business was rooted in Austin. Honestly, I'm not sure we were that together in the first place, but we got along, and there was genuine affection, and when we'd married, he'd seemed like a safe harbor. When things started to get rocky, all I did was get a jump on the inevitable, and I tell Ars as much. Even as I speak, though, I can't deny the little twist in Migot, because maybe, deep down, maybe I knew that if I'd stuck, things would have gotten better. But I couldn't stay and take the risk. Leaving was hard enough on my heart. If he'd been the one to walk, I think it would have destroyed me. Look, Owen was never my favorite guy, Ars says. But you imagined him hooking up with the grad student and packing his bags because of your issues. He never actually said or did anything, did he? Because if he did, you never told me. I scowl, but I don't respond. He's right. I'm just saying, keep an open mind. He continues, because if you don't, you're going to end up alone. Or worse, Noah will end up with someone else. I turn sharply to him, and Ars smiles knowingly. Yeah, he says. That hurts because you care, so don't pretend like you don't. Most of all, don't fuck up, okay? Chapter 14. Because I spent so much energy not thinking about Ars' words, I get a lot of writing done Sunday morning. It's barely past noon when I email the lyrics of 2 completely new songs to Celia, and am rewarded by her emoji-laden cyber squeal of joy. In the afternoon, I turn my attention to work and dive into an in-depth, meticulous review of my plans for the rollout. I spent hours going over every point and turning my notes into a PowerPoint presentation. Overkill, maybe, but considering the time crunch, I want everybody on the team to be as much in my head as possible. There are no calls or texts from Noah, and I tell myself, I don't care. Because why would he call, or text, or email, or stop by? We had a great time yesterday, but the day served its purpose. And tomorrow, we can go to work and not feel awkward around each other. Still, I can't help wondering what he's doing today. Or, more accurately, I can't help wondering who he's doing it with. Frustrated by the direction of my own thoughts, I force my attention back to work. On the dual campaigns for the trade and for consumers. On the presentation team I want to form. That companies that may be on the fence about the viability of the project can see it in action. Of the television and web ads I want to get in place for the commercial market. And, most of all, the drip campaign counting down to the product's release. I'm at the Stark offices by 7, and the receptionist leads me to the conference room that is going to be our ground zero. Maya's already there, her laptop open and her fingers flying over the keyboard. Her hair is pulled back from her face in dozens of neat cornrows that fall down her back, each fastened with a brightly colored bead. She wears neon purple glasses that stand out against hair-ebony skin, and she's glancing between the papers at her elbow and the screen as she types. Documents are stacked neatly in front of every chair, and the projector is already on. Ash runs through the presentation emailed her late last night. She tilts her head as she pulls down her computer glasses, then looks over the frames and smiles at me. Morning. I think we're all set. And that's why I adore you, I say. Maya's worked with me for a while now, and since I realized I'd do pretty much anything to keep her, I offered her a partnership a few months ago, which she eagerly accepted. She's 6 years younger than, and I hired her while she was still working toward HERMBA, then covered her last semester's tuition, because I wanted her on my team. She's ridiculously hard-working, and has some of the most original ideas I've ever heard. She's also ambitious, and as keen as I am at building Crown Consulting into a kick-ass operation. Plus, she's no dummy, and she knows that her partnership coupled with me doubling up on my music career, means her trajectory here is pretty much a straight path to the top. Most important, though, we work well together. She's got a wicked sense of humor, and we share a secret love of bad reality television and peanut butter. And Mr. Carter assigned all the offices on this hall to your team, the receptionist says to both of us. I took the liberty of selecting the corner offices for the two of you. She adds, your nameplates are on the doors. I'm Elise, by the way. Let me know if you need any help getting settled. You're expecting 5 more for this morning's meeting? From our team, Maya says, standing up to hand Elise a list of names. And then the in-house folks? She says the last as a question, looking at me. People at 8. I say, Noah and the Stark marketing people at 10. That gives us 2 hours to make sure our team is up to speed, and the plan is perfect. Once the Stark folks are in room, I want to hit the ground running. With the trunk at that time frame, we don't have the luxury of wasting minutes. Right, Aya says, as I turn back to Elise. Thanks again, and just send everyone this way when they arrive. Elise promises to do that, and Maya and I dive into work, with me pulling a chair over so that I can see her screen as we make final tweaks on the presentation. We've been going at it for over half an hour when there's a light tap at the door. I look up, see Noah, and my heart skitters in my chest. At my interview, I've been too nervous to pay attention to what I've been wearing. Now though, now, all I can think is wow, he's in a gray pinstripe suit with a shirt of such pale blue it's almost silver. His tie, a dark blue with gunmetal gray stripes, accentuates the outfit, which was clearly tailored, not to mention expensive. But it's not the suit, but the way Noah wears it that has mimicked going dry. This is a Noah only seen hints of. This is Noah who runs this entire operation. And if the look of confidence on his face is any indication, he does it exceptionally well. Good morning, he says, his eyes lingering on me for a second too long before he turns his attention to Maya. "I'm Noah Carter," he says, walking toward her and extending his hand. "You must be Maya Hancock. Nice to meet you," Maya says. "We weren't expecting you until 10, but if you want us to run you through it now, we're ready, I have no doubt. But actually, I need to talk to you," he says, turning toward me. A ball of irritation forms in my stomach, and I force myself to manage a civil smile. "Sure, let's step outside." I start that direction, barely noticing the way his brow furrows as I pass him. He's right behind me, and I shut the door. Then, for good measure, I'll drag him into the empty office across the hall. I want privacy before I lay into him. "What the hell are you doing?" I say, my voice low, but tight. Even with the door closed, we could be overheard. The last thing I want is for folks to know that there's something going on with us. I've already told Maya we have a history, but he also told her that it was all very much in the past. His brows rise, and he looks like he's about to laugh, which, of course, only makes me more annoyed. What am I doing? I was introducing myself to your colleague, who, according to the resume on your website, seems extremely competent. What makes you think I was doing anything more? You smiled at me, I say, and the moment the words are out of my mouth, I regret them. Clearly, I'm an idiot. "I'll make sure not to do that again," he says dryly. "And you said you needed to talk to me alone. Why would you need to do that?" "I didn't," he says. "You assumed it." He takes a step closer, and I wish he'd back up. He's making it even harder to think straight. "But since we're here," he says, "I'll say that I enjoyed Saturday very much, and it took a lot of willpower not to call you yesterday and invite you out for a walk around the lake." "Oh, well, I was working." My voice is level, but I fight to hide the surprising little twinge of disappointment that I'd missed out on seeing him. I quash it down. "What did you need to talk about this morning?" "I'm going to tell the whole team, but I wanted to give you a heads up about possible corporate espionage." "Great," I say ironically after he tells me the details of his conversation with Mr. Stark. "Hopefully, we're not a target, and it's just limited to the Israeli company we're racing to the finish line." "Fingers crossed," he says as we head back to the conference room. He fills Maya in, who looks at me suspiciously the entire me he's talking, to the point that I rub my hand over Mimith in case I have cream cheese on my chin. Noah and I had returned to find a full spread, and I dug in immediately. But no, my chin is clean, and I can't help but wonder what me perceptive soon-to-be partner is seeing that I'm not. We've just finished bringing Noah up to speed when my team arrives, a group of 5 freelancers that I've used on various projects. I trust them all, and I'm also certain that Noah has vetted them, in light of the espionage concerns. So now, trust them even more. After quick meetings with each of them in turn, it's time for the Stark marketing team to join us. Soon, the conference room is full, and the presentation begins. Noah starts by discussing the espionage concerns, which I think is a brilliant move, as it underscores his trust in his team, something that's especially key since he's new to the company. After that, he turns the meeting over to me. I gather the slippery stack of file folders, head to the front of the table, and then drop everything when I'm just inches from Noah. Stellar. I crouch immediately, trying to gather the loose sheets, my cheeks burning because I'm certain that Noah has a rather undignified view of my ass pressed tight against my linen skirt as I crawl halfway under the table. Then he's down on all fours beside me. "Fancy meeting ya here," he says, and I laugh. I like to command control of a room. I say, "You got everyone's attention, all right." I scowl at him, but he just laughs, then passes me a sheaf of papers. For a moment, his fingers linger on mine, then our eyes meet. 1 second, then another, and it's as if I can feel the tension running all the way through me, electrifying my skin, making me hyper-aware of even the air around me. I open my mouth, but I have no idea what I'm going to say. That's okay though. Noah says it for me. "Go on. Show everyone what you've got." He helps me up, and that's exactly what I do. My clumsiness is a tiny blip in a sea of productivity. We go through the plan, assign goals and tasks, and make sure the timeline is clear. I handle questions, Give Maya the floor so that the team knoweach can go to her as well. And then sit back in my chair as we move on to the final point of today's meeting. Product name. I say, then nod to Maya, who puts up the slide. We propose red brick for a number of reasons. It has both corporate and commercial appeal. It suggests strength, but also has an element of both danger and protection. You can hurt someone with a brick, but you can also build. Red has similar connotations. We're marketing a product that has intense security applications, but that is a bit edgy and potentially controversial, and also very, very useful for law enforcement. Red for danger, red for life, red for help and assistance and protection. Just think of the Red Cross, right? We tossed that around for a while, but ultimately, the name is approved unanimously, although only Noah's vote truly counts. We move from there to the drip campaign I want to get started next week, a slow build to introduce the product to our core markets. And then, right in time for a late lunch, we finally break. I think that went great, Maya says, after Noah and his fave left. You all had great suggestions, she tells the team, then dismisses them to go work on their assigned tasks. God, I love the power, she says to me, and I burst out laughing. Don't make me have to take it back, I say, teasing. She's accepted my offer of partnership, but we're still waiting for Milliwire to get back with the various bits of paperwork. You'd never, she says. You love me too much, and that went too smoothly, did. I agree, pleased. I'm going to go find this office thereinlies assigned me and see if I can narrow down a list of possible companies for testimonials. One thing we're planning to do is offer early releases of red brick to potential clients for beta testing and marketing testimonials. Right now, though, we don't have those beta testers in place. I'm mentally running down a list of companies as I step into my office, only to stop dead when I find Noah leaning against the edge of my desk. Great meeting, he says. Thanks. I've done hundreds of rollouts, but this is the first time a client's praise has made me feel quite so warm and wonderful. Deliberately, I move behind the desk and take a seat in my new chair. Nice, I say. Most clients just shove us in a conference room. Maybe I wanted you to have privacy, he says, going to shut the door. Oh, my voice is soft, breathy, but it's also firm. He shakes his head. So that you can get work done. Essays, and I feel my cheeks heat all over again. You're playing with me on purpose, aren't you? Never, he says, but I have to press my lips together to keep from laughing. He is, of course, and the smile that is now crinkling at the corners of his eyes proves it. Actually, he continues, taking a seat opposite me. The privacy does come in handy. I wanted to tell you that I have a couple of ideas for security companies we can talk to about beta testing. A good friend heads up Psych Security and hasses to WER, which is the World Organization for Rescue and Rehabilitation. It's a private organization that works closely with international law enforcement, which you know about from when you were doing the covert work, right? He says, which is another reason the door is closed. I realized just how much he told me during our afternoon out. Personal things, private things, and several things that weren't his to tell. Thanks, I say. For what? For trusting me. I do, he says, and for a moment silence hangs between us. Then he clears his throat and adds, we can't actually use Stark International's security team to beta our own product. But I'm sure that Ryan Hunter, he heads it up, will have so many additional suggestions. This is all great. Can you make the introductions and I'll calf them? Absolutely. In fact, I can introduce you to Ryan next week when we go to law. I lean back in my chair, my fingers twined behind my head. We're going to Los Angeles? The wrap party for Mysterious is next Thursday. That superhero movie? I'm incredibly confused. My friend Lyle's the lead guy, he explains. And you're coming to the party as my +1. I sit up, the chair spring bouncing me back faster than I had expected. No, as a friend and a business colleague only. No, I say firmly. I have too much to do here. And what? I have a killer glare when I need to. And now I'm at hard atham. There's just too much work and too little time. He says nothing, and after a while I can't hold the glare any longer. I look down at the desktop and try to calm down. When I look back up, I find his eyes on me, like I'm some complicated equation, which, I suppose I am. He's invited me for business. I'm not going because it feels personal, but it only feels that way because I'm seeing him that way, and because I do have feelings for him, and because, more than anything, I want to protect my heart. You're right, he finally says, his voice firmly professional. I'll speak to them, and if they're interested, we can get on a call. That will be fine. He's right, that will be fine. Better, even. I nod in agreement, trying to ignore the knot in my stomach that keeps twisting and turning and tightening. Great, I say briskly. Now, I have some rough sketches for the print ads I want you to look at. For the rest of the week, Maya and I knuckle down with Thetum. Noah too, though of course he has an entire company tour and simultaneous to us planning the red brick rollout. Even so, he's in the trenches daily, working shoulder toss holder with me, and when I point out that he has oath the responsibilist, he reminds me that while Stark Applia technology is firmly established, the Austin office is still new, and still proving itself. Red brick is its first high-profile product. As if there weren't enough pressure, I'd thought that his daily presence would be awkward. I was wrong. Just the opposite, actually. The days fly by and we fall into a rhythm, a pattern. I work closely with him, and it's wonderful. We instinctively know what the other wants, needs. Honestly, if it were sex, it would be the best ever. I know I shouldn't be thinking like that, but as the days pass, as I watch him competently sketch changes to a design or authoritatively tell the team in which direction to move, I find myself inching closer to something I know I should be backing away from. And when he's standing behind me, his hand pressed to Miss Holder as we look at the laptop screen, it's everything I can do to think about the words and images in front of us, and not the pressure of his touch, or the way he could so easily slide his hand down to caress my breast, or twine his fingers in my hair and force my head back for a long, deep kiss. Honestly, I think I've used my vibrator more in the past week than all of last year. It's a good thing ours has already left onthe, and I have the house to myself. I'd be mortified if he heard me all alone in my room, and the vivid dreams in which Noah has a starring role. Oh, my. Between my sleepless nights and my long hours at work, I'm bordering on exhausted, but at the same time, I've never been more pumped up. The campaign prep is going great, and every day the thought of seeing Noah again is as invigorating as coffee. Well, not quite. I'm drinking so much coffee I shall probably hook myself to an IV. You're really good at this, Noah says, as he and I are bent over some mock-ups that the art department sent up to the conference room. Thanks. I smile up at him, feeling more pleased by his praise than I should. After all, he hired me, didn't he? Of course he thinks I'm competent. He's smiling back at me, his eyes crinkling at the corner, his hair wild from having run his fingers through it at least a dozen times that morning. He looks like he just rolled out of bed, and me heart does a little flip-flop. I quickly turn back to the mock-ups so that he can't look in me eyes and see my thoughts. I like the challenge. I continue, mostly to fill the silence. So much that I sometimes think I shouldn't even consider starting Pink Chameleon up again. Why? He steps back from the table. I turn to see him better. I don't know, I say, as Maya steps into the room and heads to the far side of the conference table where her laptop is set up. I glance at her, but she's already tapping the keyboard, obviously deep into some project of her own. I turn back to Noah, who's clearly waiting for a better response from me. I guess I think about what a good thing a hobby with Crown Consulting. Why would I want to risk that? Not that I would be. Maya has the skill to keep the business alive. I frown, trying to order my thoughts. Or I guess, why do I need more? Fair enough, he says, but you're talented and you're passionate and you're ambitious. Don't settle just because that's comfortable. You should go after what you want. I swallow, hearing the words in a different context. Not music, but I look away. I guess. I don't know, or maybe that's not really why you're hesitating. What? There's a ridiculous note of panic in my voice, and I want to kick myself. I just wonder if maybe you're afraid of making it. Becausewe're came so close one time, and then it all got ripped away. I gape at him, and it takes me a moment to realize he's still talking about singing and not us. I trail off. I have no idea what to say. His smile is gentle. Sorry, I didn't mean to sound preachy. All I wanted to say was that I think you have the talent to mack it. Don't deny yourself just because you're scared and comfortable with the status quo. Thanks, I say, his belief in my talent meaning more to me than it should, anytime. This time, his grin is wide, even a little playful. He heads toward the door. I'm due on a conference call. I'll check in later. I nod, then stare stupidly at the closed door once he's gone. What is with you two? Maya demands, the second I turn around. What? Nothing. I look down at the mock-ups. We're just friends, that's all. I've told her about our past, but only the short version. Dated years ago, broke up, now working together. Yeah, sure. Are you ready to go over the national media budget? Absolutely, she says. But I can tell from the tone of her voice that this conversation isn't over. We've become too close in the last few years for her to let this drop. Maybe that's good. Maybe I need someone to talk to. Because right now, I think I'm a danger to myself. Because the biggest thought in my mind at this very moment is that not jumping all over his suggestion that we be friends with benefits was a really, really stupid move. Chapter 15. For his entire career, Noah had been someone who habitually got to work early. Now, faced with the knowledge that each morning he'd see Kiki, he found himself arriving not just early, but ridiculously, obscenely, obsessively early. It was worth it, though. He liked walking down to the 22nd floor from Sisyphus on 23 and catching her at her desk before he ate. The next time, he was certain she'd intentionally brought him a muffin, but he pretended to believe her bullshit bakery error story. The third time, neither of them pretended, and they sat together on the small sofa in her office, drank coffee, and ate cheese Danish. They'd fallen into a pattern, coffee and baked goods while they chatted about nothing in particular. Then, after about 15 minutes of that, they'd shift seamlessly into work mode. It wasn't his usual way to dive into the day, but damned if Hugh isn't getting used to it. Fridays were always crazy, and this one was no exception. He'd gotten a call from a European vendor, and now he was late getting out the door. In the past, he wouldn't have cared, but now, the thought of skipping his morning Kiki time edged him toward a foul mood. Hurrying, he crossed the condo lobby, then pushed open the glass doors. He started to veer right toward Congress, then stopped cold when he saw that same damn green truck parked across the street. And once again, there was someone in the driver's seat, slumped down and wearing a ball cap. Maybe it was nothing, maybe it was none of his business, but maybe it was a corporate spy, and Noah intended to find out. He checked himself, and instead of going right, he headed straight across the narrow driveway that ran in front of the condo. He hit the sidewalk, and then even though he was in the middle of the block without a crosswalk and traffic washavie, he started across the one-way street, determined to see just who the hell was in that truck. He didn't make it. The driver turned. The truck started. And right as Noah hit the middle of the street, the damn thing pulled out away from the curb. This time, he had the presence of mind to check the license plate, and when he saw that there wasn't one, he spat out a curse as he continued to his office. The moment he stepped into her office, Kiki rose to her feet, her eyes skimming over him with concern. Are you okay? And there it was, that sweet little kick in his gut. The waish surprised him by the simple fact that she knew him. It was the reason why being around her was both hard and the easiest thing in the world. Fine, he said, just baffled and a little concerned. He took a seat, then told her about the green truck. She passed him a blueberry muffin and sat on the couch beside him. Do you think it has to do with red brick? What Stark told you about espionage? He hadn't realized how much he'd feared looking paranoid until she spoke, and her words confirmed he wasn't overreacting. I don't know, but if I see it again I'll let Stark know. She nodded approval. Good. Oh, and check this out. She got up and went to her desk, practically dancing her way back to hand him the most recent copy of X-Tech, a prestigious trade publication that focused on tech and security. He knew Thetum had been targeting them to run a feature on red brick, and the way she was doing a combination happy dance and victory march told him they'd gotten the interview. Even better, it made him laugh. "Don't you dare tease me," she said, circling her desk as she did a couple of fist pumps. "I worked my ass off lining that up." She danced her way back to him again, and this time, he grabbed her hand and tugged her down to the couch. "Spoil sport," she teased, but she was smiling, and she hadn't let go of his hand. She met his eyes, and he heard her sharp, shuddering breath before she gently tugged her hand away, then reached for her coffee and held her mug in both hands, as if she wanted to stop herself from reaching for him again. "I'm going to a housewarming party on Sunday," he said. "Fjord's coming unplanned. You should join me." "I should? Why's that?" She wasn't looking at him, but he could hear the tease in her voice. But he wasn't teasing when he answered. "Because I want you to." She turned to him, her eyes wide with surprise, her freckles howling up a little more against her flushed cheeks. "Oh." She licked her lips, and it wasn't until the slow smile spread across her face that he realized he'd been holding his breath. "In that case, I'd love to. Ours grew up in this neighborhood," Kiki said on Sunday. Isigh drove north on Chacon Street in East Austin. "I came with him a few times in college to see his parents. It's changed a lot. They lived over that way, by the cemetery." She pointed vaguely to the left, back toward downtown. "We used to walk through it and have long talks about the meaning of life." Noah hadn't grown up in Austin, but he was familiar with the city's efforts to revitalize the historically lower-income areas of the interstate. Over a decade ago, a lot of young professionals had started buying up the houses to either tear down or renovate, and as the smaller bungalows were replaced with modern, urban dwellings, more businesses moved in to service the newer, moneyed residents. The problem, of course, was that the longtime residents ended up priced out of their homes, unable to afford the increase in property taxes that came with the new, shinier East Austin's heart. Kiki agreed when he said as much. After his father died, his mom couldn't afford the taxes. She sold it for a decent amount, but not enough to buy another place in Austin. "She's renting now in Dallas near his sister," she shrugged. "But there are upsides too. The restaurants, the cleanup, crime eyes down. But it makes me sad that people who lived here for generations can't hang onto their homes." She sighed wistfully. "Ours was just starting to perform when we were in college, and he'd sing for his cousins at his house. I'd come along and sing backup or whatever he needed, and his mom would stuff us full of tamales. It was heaven." "The tamales or the singing?" he asked, as his car's navigation system ordered him to make a left. "Both. But mostly the singing." He made the turn, then took his eyes off the road long and note the way she was still smiling at the memory. "I was thinking about what you said the other day," he said. "About you considering backing off from Pink Chameleon." "You think I should?" she guessed. "I have a good thing with Crown Consulting, and I need to be a grown youp about my life and career. Actually, I was going to say that you need to go for it. You've always wanted to sing, and you should grab what you want when you can. It struck him that he wasn't following his own advice. He wanted Kiki, but he sure as hell hadn't grabbed her. Except that wasn't the same at all. He was keeping his distance because that's what she wanted. He was respecting her boundaries. But maybe now it was time to start chipping away. "It's scary," she said, her words unintentionally tracking his thoughts. "I'm so much older now, and I don't know if our music is even relevant, and touring doesn't sound nearly as cool as it used to. But at the same time, I want to sing. I want to perform, and I don't want to wake up and be angry with myself for not trying." "Which is exactly what I just said." She laughed. "Yeah, I guess it is. You know, this is the second time you've encouraged me to dive into Pink Chameleon. I was just a sounding board the other day," he protested. "No, I mean now, and back when we lived in Los Angeles." "Oh." He forced his body to relax. "Sorry if I brought up bad memories." "No," she said quickly, then gently touched his arm. "No, I didn't mean it that way. Actually, I like it. It's nice having someone watch my back again. Gives me a reality check." "What are friends for?" he asked as the car announced that they'd arrived at their destination. A pale blue bungalow that was probably built in the 30s. and looked as if it had been recently refurbished. He found a spot on the street and killed the engine. He was about to open his door and get out when Kiki put her hand on his arm again. "I'm glad," she said, "that you're here, that we're friends again." Her smile was sweet, maybe even a little shy. "Working with you. It's been great. I've missed." "Well, I missed it, so have I," he said, his throat suddenly dry. "And I'm glad we're friends again too." And he was, genuinely, honestly happy. But that didn't mean that he didn't want more. They got out of the car and followed the yard sign that told them to come in through the back gate. They followed a crushed granite path to a xeriscaped backyard where a dozen or so people mingled, including a tall, slender blonde, Evie. She was chatting with Griffin, their host. But for a second, she looked away from Griffin and straight at Noah. Their eyes met. Then her gaze flickered to Kiki and quickly back to Noah. She flashed a knowing smile, then returned her attention to Griffin. Beside Noah, Kiki was scanning the party, apparently oblivious. "Who's the host?" "That's him," Noah said, pointing. "We should go say hi." Since he wasn't at all interested in talking with Evie, he was about to suggest they get a drink first. But he didn't have to use that ploy, as he was rescued by Wyatt and Kelsey, who came up and introduced themselves. "I saw a woman in mind in Dallas," Kiki said. "It was spectacular. I'm glad you enjoyed it." Wyatt said, "So much. And I saw the prints in Noah's apartment." "They were exceptional." "Oh?" Kelsey asked innocently. Too innocently, Noah thought. "The ones on the wall near his bed? So, are you two dating?" "I'm allowed to be nosy because the host's my brother. Plus, Noah's told us about you, and I've had my fingers crossed." "Kelsey," Wyatt chastised, but Noah was pleased to see that. Kiki only laughed. "We're just friends," she said, but her tone was almost like a question, and that little bit of inflection gave him hope. "And colleagues," he added, though the second the word escaped him, he wanted to call them back. Tossing work up felt like a wall, and he didn't want any more walls. He was considering what else he could say when he heard a female squeal, and a dark-haired girl in leggings and an oversized loose-knit sweater bounded over, calling Kiki's name. "Mina?" Kiki asked, then held out her arms as the younger woman embraced her. "What on earth are you doing here?" "I'm interning for Griffin," she said. Tossing work up felt like a wall, and he didn't want any more walls. He was considering what else he could say when he heard a female squeal, and a dark-haired girl in leggings and an oversized loose-knit sweater bounded over, calling Kiki's name. "Mina?" Kiki asked, then held out her arms as the younger woman embraced her. "What on earth are you doing here?" "I'm interning for Griffin," she said. "Colleagues?" she said. "Seriously? You like this girl, and that's the best you can do?" "I know. Lame, but recoverable," she said boldly, as if she were a relationship general leading the charge. "So how is it really going with you two?" He tried to think how to explain it to her. "She's right, we're friends. But you haven't gotten past the speed bump to move on Tony thing more?" "That's not a bad way of putting it." He dragged his fingers through his hair. "It wasn't just her desire to stay at arm's length that was stymieing them. It was their past, the memory of pain, and what he wanted what he needed to do wasted her flat out, that he wanted more, that he knew he'd hurt her and wanted to spend the rest of his life making it up to her." "That," Kelsey said softly. Noah frowned, confused. Whatever you were thinking that gave you such a wistful look. Just go tell her that." "Easier said than done." She gave him a gentle shove. "Sure it is, if you never do it." She cut a glance toward Kiki, who was laughing as Minna bounced away. "See, she's free. So, go. So he went. And, what the hell? Maybe it was time." "Hey," he said, moving to her side, his heart flipping a bit. When she flashed that sweet smile before turning her attention back to the guests, her eyes skimming as if looking for Simeon, he put a hand on her arm. "I thought we could run inside and get a drink." "Sure." She tilted her head toward him. "Can you believe Minnie is here?" She said Cam is too, but I haven't seen him. "Cam? Your brother?" "Yeah, I know. Small world, right? But he's Cam." She lifted her free hand and waved, and a familiar 20-something with dark brown hair and an earring hurried over. "Wait, that's Cam." The bartender at the Fix is your brother? She nodded as Cam scooped her into a hug. Not that her acknowledgement was necessary. Now that Noah knew, heck would see the child from Kiki's old photos in the face of Theme and Cam had become. Noah realized he should have connected the name of Cam, the bartender, with Cam the brother who interrupted in Thiele. But he cut himself some slack. He'd been more than a little distracted that night. Why are you here? Kiki asked him. Griff told Mina she could bring a guest, and her boyfriend's out of town. I'm a huge fan of Griff's show, so she thought I'd get a kick out of it, and invited me. I'm so glad. You might as well have moved to Dallas when you took that apartment by campus. I hardly see you anymore. Gee, Mom, she rolled her eyes. Though Noah knew that Cam was only half teasing. Long ago, Kiki had told Noah about their mother's abandonment and how she ended up being half-parent, half-sibling, especially after their grandmother's death. Listen, she said, you two never actually met, but I talked about you both all the time. Cam, this is Noah. Noah, man, other Cam. Noah felt the chill the instant Cam turned to face him with a bland, hey, we're working together, Kiki explained, apparently not feeling the frost. Cam said, listen, there's something I've been meaning to call you about. I know it's a party and all, but can I borrow you for a sec? It's kind of important. Immediately, concern flooded her face. Of course. She reached for Noah and gave his hand a quick squeeze. I'll find you in a bit. Sure, he said, wishing he could grab the hem of her shirt and pull her back to him. Because as much as he hoped that Cam was telling Kiki that she was an idiot for not throwing herself into Noah's arms, workplace romance be damned, that probably wasn't the case. After all, Cam had watched from half a continent away as Noah and Kiki had fallen in love. And as Noah had walked away, no way was Cam telling his sister to give Noah a break. More likely, he was telling her to run for the hills. And considering all the baggage that Noah now carried, maybe her brother was right.